One thing we've seen a lot in the cannabis space when we work with customers, particularly those on just spreadsheets or QuickBooks and spreadsheets, they really don't know what their costs are, or they've got kind of a huge costing spreadsheet that's, they're never very comfortable with, and it's a lot of manual work. So the benefit of having a full ERP solution, of course, is that all of your costs will be tracked. In SilverLeaf, you'll be able to identify what costing method you want to use, and you'll be able to identify overhead that you want to assign to items. You'll be able to set up labor costs or production machinery costs in your work centers, and then actually roll up your costs on a finished good that includes all the material, all the labor, and all the overhead. And we also have a feature that is called item charges, but you might know it as landed cost. And that allows us to assign other costs to our products. So maybe you get a freight bill and you want to assign that to multiple products that you received. So I'm going to hop over to the demo and we'll take a look at some of these features. So I'm going to start with one of our items that's our biomass that we're going to purchase, that we might have purchased. I have two biomass items, one that I grow and one that I purchased for demonstration purposes. And if we come in and look in the costing section of my setup, I've set this up to be a standard costed, a FIFO costed item. And you, of course, can choose which costing method you want to use. Part of our conversations and our implementation is to discuss what the right costing methodology will be for you. I'm using FIFO, but you'll see it's always tracking an average cost for me. The system will keep FIFO cost layers, and when I sell something or consume something, it'll always use the oldest layer first. But I'm also getting a unit cost, which it's kind of keeping track of as an average, just to kind of keep an eye on it. I can add in here, if I wanted to, an indirect cost percentage. So if I always wanted to, every time I receive it, add additional cost, I can do that. If I look up here a little bit, you can see I have on hand in inventory 20,708 grams of this item. And when I drill down, I can see all the different tags associated with it and what the costs were that I received it at. Because we can track overhead and expected cost and those landed costs that I mentioned before that I'll show you in a moment, we have a tool called value entries. And the value entries will show you all the adjustments that have been made to your cost of any one item. I think I've always purchased this at 75 cents, so I don't see very much. But again, if we had an adjustment or a landed cost, you would see that in the value entries. So this gives your cost accounting team a great, a treasure chest of data that they can drill into to really understand their costings. So this was on the item. Let's go ahead and look at a work center as well. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my packaging work center. When you set up a work center, you can identify actually, yeah, we'll use this one. This is okay. I'm going to use a different one in a moment. I'm going to show you a different work center. But basically on this one, I've set up our packaging work center. We've identified that it costs $35 an hour to run this work center, but we also want to add an indirect cost of $15 plus another $10. So every time I plan to use this work center, it's going to estimate $50.25. And then as I enter my actual costs, it will accrue the machine center costs during the production time. So I've created costs of my components and costs of my work centers. Let's now go look at a finished good and see how this all rolls up. I'm going to go back to those gummies that we looked at before. And I'm going to go ahead and open what's called the rolled up cost shares. And I'll compress this a little bit. You'll see that my 10 pack of gummies is made of 10 individual gummies, a label, a dram, a box, and then it's going to be in the packaging work center. As I explode this, I can see all the material costs that go into the gummies, and also I can see the work center costs as well. So I've got my lab, I've got time in the cooktop that I'm tracking the cost for, and ultimately it's rolling up to rolling up a total cost on my item. I scroll across here of $46 per pack of 10. Might have some crazy costs in there, but you get the idea. It can all roll up. And so this again gives you great visibility. In fact, when I first was setting this up, it showed my total cost was about $8,000, and I realized I had set the unit cost with the wrong unit of measure, the wrong time. I had it for hours instead of minutes or something like that. So it's great visibility into what your costs will look like. In another session in our webinar series, we'll look more at how we set up these bill of materials for production. Okay, and then as promised, I'm going to show you how you can do a landed cost. So I've already started an invoice to save a little bit of time. We'll go back to the purchase invoices that we've already looked at. And we've got a third one. So I've received a bunch of product from my vendor, but we were paying the freight. So then I received a bill from Acme Trucking for $1,000. So I've set this up, instead of hitting a GL account, I'm hitting what's called a charge item. And my charge item I want to use is freight. So from here, whoops, I can go into what's called item charge assignment. And I can choose to get receipt lines, and I'll see all my purchase receipts that have come in. So maybe when we want to assign this freight, we know the receipt number we want to assign it to. It's this one, and I'm going to assign it to these 3 lines. So when we received this purchase order, these 3 things came together. So I can pull them in, and now I can choose how I want to assign them. If I chose equally, it's going to assign $333 to each line in the inventory. I'm going to choose by amount. And now what it's going to do is prorate it based on the value of each item that we received. So my glass jars are getting the bulk of the item charge assignment, whereas the labels are getting just a little bit of that. If I had an item that maybe came from overseas and in a container, some of the items were very small and some were very big, there was another option here to assign it by either weight or volume. So your bigger items can carry more of the cost. And what will happen when I post this invoice, it's going to take these costs and add it to the value of my inventory on hand. So if I receive the jars at, I forget how many I received. Let's say I received 4,800, and let's say they were, 10 cents a piece. It's now going to take this 937 and add that as well. So the cost might be, I'm not going to do that in my head. It'll add to the cost. Instead of being 10 cents a piece, it might be 14 cents a piece to carry the value of the freight.